Hello and welcome to Mythmakers. Mythmakers is the podcast for fantasy fans and fantasy creators, brought to you by the Oxford Centre for Fantasy. My name is Julia Golding, and today I have the great pleasure of being joined by another author. Her name is Rose Black, and she has just produced, if I get this right, so you can see it if you're watching the YouTube version, a book called Fated Winds and Promising Seas. So welcome to Rose. Rose, is this your debut title or
No, this is my second book.
Second book. Oh, we must ask you a little bit later on about the problem with the second novel. Now, Rose, people will hear from your accent that you live in the UK. But more specifically, you live in quite a fantastical city. You live in Bath.
I do. I'm very lucky I live in Bath.
Yeah, and you also describe yourself as a mother to a wiggly child.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want you to cast your mind back to the life when the young Rose herself was a wiggly child. What was the kind of thing that you were reading on your journey to being an author? Which were the books that lit the excitement in your mind for words?
Yeah. So when I was very young, it was my dad used to read to me a lot, and he had these books about a boys' boarding school and the hijinks that went on in that. So that was like when I was very young, and then things like the Worst Witch books. I could relate to Mildred quite a lot. She was clumsy. She was a bit of an outcast. She didn't quite do things right, so she was very relatable. The Animals of Farthing Wood. Loved those books.
So these are actually all fantasy titles, aren't they?
Yes, yeah, a lot of them. Yeah. What else did I like? I can't remember anything about it. But Bunnicula has like the title and the vampire bunny just stuck in my head. So I don't know anything about the plot, but the vampire bunny has stuck with me. And I think The Celery Stalks at Midnight is one of my favourite titles of a book ever.
Yeah, so you're obviously drawn to books that have like a quirky approach. So
yeah.
Celery Stalks at Midnight.
Yeah.
Like you're fighting a duel with celery stalks.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
I really like that.
So scrolling forward a few years, that reader became a writer. Were you writing as a child? Are you, like me, the sort of person who had hundreds of stories in exercise books?
Yeah. I had them. They weren't very good, but yeah, I was writing certainly as a teen. I had various things written in notebooks.
So the ones you were doing as a teenager, would you say they were more in the fan fiction area, or were you doing?
No, they were. I think they were probably more urban fantasy, from what I remember, or sci-fi. They did. As a teen, I read quite a lot of sci-fi, Philip K. Dick and Ray Bradbury and that sort of thing. And Star Trek books. So I think I moved away from fantasy as a teen and then came back to it as an adult.
One of the things I noticed when I look at the stuff I was writing as a child was I would try out different genres, very heavily influenced by what I was actually reading at the time.
Yeah.
With the same story. So something that might be a time slip story like Children of Green Snow would suddenly go into outer space because I'd watched Blake's Seven. There's a wonderful anarchy to it. Were you kind of free expression at the same time, or were you more organised than me?
I think each story was its own thing. It wasn't so much that I'd go. The story itself would go off in places, but I did. I'd have a superhero story, and I had a one set on Mars, and I think I did have a fantasy one as well. So yeah.
So anyone who's listening who's got in their household some young person who's trying out all these things, don't try and tidy up their writing too soon. I think it's important to let a child just go through wardrobes and out to space and back in time without worrying too much if it makes much sense. I think it's great just to have that freedom where you don't, not like schoolwork, which gets marked. It's a different thing. So, Rose, talking about Fated Winds and Promising Seas, I think loosely I would call it a pirate story.
Yeah, pirate seems to be the term that comes up. I guess they kind of are. Pirates is in their anti-authority. So they're not raiding ships, but they do have that kind of sense to them.
So I dare anybody to try this novel and not want to carry on reading, because you have the most wonderful opening set piece, which I'm a bit of a sucker for stories which start with the main character in the lowest point, stuck in jail, no possibility of escape. Several which I can think of a bit like that, which I absolutely adore. And so I was thrilled when I opened your novel to find that Lucky, our main character, is in jail. And he's clearly, more than that, he's clearly a very damaged young man. He's very, I suppose he's had all his social connections pruned off him. So he's very damaged. And the story is one that follows his self-discovery and the blooming of his friendships, and in many ways his healing. I don't think that's giving too much away.
No, I don't think that's, no.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the book, how it first, sprung to life in your mind and then processing it?
So I with other stories, I can think of things that have sort of triggered them. I can think of my first book, there was a little Tumblr post and that kind of ended up sparking the story. But this one, I genuinely don't know what started it. I just sat down. It was a Thursday in October, and I started writing about this guy in prison who'd been there for 10 years and didn't know who he was anymore. And I think I had about 10K written in a week. And the story kind of possessed me. I had to get this story about this guy down. So I don't know what quite caused it, but it took over me. And for the next couple of months, I was writing that this was my life, this story. I had to get it down. I had to go find out what was happening, because I didn't really have an outline. I didn't really have a plan. It kind of came out, and I was exploring what was going on as I was writing it.
So that's not always your writing process then? You sometimes have more of a plan, do you?
Yeah, I often have more of an idea where things are going and what's going on, and there's usually something that sets it off. Or I can say, it's these two things, and I wanted to explore that aspect of it. But yeah, I think this one was very much, it just kind of hit me.
So tell us a little bit about the actual story, the plot, to sort of tease people into wanting to read it.
Okay, so it's about Lucky, who's been imprisoned for 10 years. For killing his mother, and he doesn't think that he did it, but he can't really remember what happened on that day. He's got this vague image of a girl with white hair, but nobody seems to know who she was. And while he's in prison, a leviathan, which are giant sea serpents, which live in the sea around the area, knocks into the prison, and he's accidentally freed into the water, and he gets picked up by a ship. And the sailors on the ship, and they take him on board, this damaged guy, and say, well, okay, well, you can stay here. And he makes friends with one of the sailors, a young man called Gabriel. And the book is about the two of them trying to uncover what happened with Lucky's mother and why Gabriel is so familiar to Lucky. Lucky seems to think he knows Gabriel from somewhere, but he doesn't remember, and Gabriel doesn't remember him. So the book is about them uncovering what happened in the past, how they're connected, and also trying to put a stop to the church, who are very much anti the Leviathans, anti the magic users, and trying to protect their home from the church.
Yeah, so the church is, in a sense, worships. Now, I'm going to get this right. Does it worship fate?
Yeah.
The church worships fate, and the magic users are more to do with the sort of serendipity and freedom.
Yes, yeah. So that the fate is about predestination, about this is what's going to happen, and it's very much a way of, this is where we can be safe because we know what's going to happen. We know the way things should be, but obviously not everybody wants to live with the way things should be. The way things should be for others isn't always what should be for them as individuals.
Yes. So some ways, to me, the story seemed like an example of, well, it was held together by the idea of falling into good and bad crowds. There are those people who make you become what you need to be and should be, and those who want to squeeze you into what they think you should be. I mean, they have a good reason in their own mind for doing that. It's not evil in the sense of malevolence. It's more fear of freedom, I suppose.
Yeah.
Would you say that's the right way of understanding?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And I think that there is a lot of that in the world. People think, they think it should be like this, but they haven't considered, their viewpoint might be quite narrow, or they're focused on things that matter to them. So it's about people who'll make you conform versus people who'll give you the freedom to take up the shape you want to be.
Yeah, one of the things which I thought was very interesting in the way you had characterized the side of freedom and magic is that magic literally costs in the world of your novel. Can you tell us a bit about your magic system and how you came up with that?
Yeah, so the magic users they're able to manipulate water, and there's a shrine on an island that they go to, and they promise something, and something will happen in the future, and that what they've promised will be given up in return for their magic powers. And it's always something negative, and it's always something you can't cheat, because a couple of characters have tried it and it doesn't work.
It's a bit like the fairy tale trope of having to give something that matters to you in exchange for some sort of blessing.
Yeah. And the fairy tale idea of the first thing that comes to you, that greets you, and you think it's going to be the dog, and it turns out to be the daughter. So the price is often a lot higher than you realise it's going to be.
Indeed. So I think that's important, because sometimes if you get magic on tap, like magic that doesn't have any limits or resource, it seems as though, why don't you just solve all the world's problems with it?
Yeah. I prefer magic that's a bit more, it either has a cost or a constraint, or otherwise it can get too powerful.
Yes. Yeah, I've often wondered, for example, the most famous sort of magic systems, of course, are things like Harry Potter. Doesn't seem to be a limit on the magic in Harry Potter other than you're magic or you're not. And I've just wondered, why don't they just cast the spell and everything's okay? It'd be interesting to talk about those who know more about Harry Potter, if that actually is true. And anyway, so going back to your book, you describe yourself as, in the sort of back flap, so this isn't private. You describe yourself as bisexual, and the story features a gay central relationship between Lucky and Gabriel. Though I should say to anyone who's listening, it's definitely PG, or I can't remember what the American, but basically nothing to shock in there. It's in fact very sweet, the relationship. Can you tell us your thoughts on the need for representation in fantasy, well, all stories, but particularly in fantasy stories?
I think representation in fantasy is very important, because fantasy is often used as an allegory or a metaphor for things. And I think the best ones come out from people who have experienced what they're describing, or they are aware of the aspects of it. So they are coming from a place where it is part of them. And for me, writing allows me to explore parts of myself that I can't do in real life, parts of identity, and playing with aspects of myself and gender and things. So I think it is important to come from things, taking your identities and your characters as real people, and real people are going to be reading it, rather than, I want to do this because I think it's popular, or I think this is a good aesthetic. So I think representation is important, but I think it's also important that we don't pressure people into being being upfront about their identities, because a lot of people can't, or a lot of people don't know the right words to explain how they are or how they see themselves. So I think that's also an important side of it.
Yes, I think that there's a tension, isn't there, between the desire of us as authors to have a diverse series of characters in our books, which will obviously mean they won't all be parts of our own experience, because that would be incredibly limiting. whilst also being authentic to the experience of somebody who reflects that identity, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So did you have a sort of think about that, because you're choosing two young men as your...
Yeah, I mean, I my identity, how I see myself it has come, how I've changed how I see myself has come out from my writing, and I think that is one of the good things, that even if I can't always explain it, or I can't sort of put on the right face, I know myself better that way.
I think there's quite a lot of fear out there of being told you've done the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think there is, and I think there is the risk that you force people to come out when they're not ready or they're not safe. So I think it's important that writers question themselves rather than, editors or publishing or even readers. I think it's important that it's the writer who goes, yes, this is something I feel I can write about, rather than, oh, it's okay, I can write about it, I'll just get a sensitivity reader to cover it, that's fine. So I think it's important that it's something that gets questioned internally.
Yes, I mean, I think I should probably do a podcast about sensitivity readers, because that in itself is fraught with a different set of sort of judgments and morality and what have you coming in to a world which was the author's own. I think we're in a difficult patch at the moment, but maybe we'll just get more at ease with it in a few more years' time.
Yeah, I think honesty and approaching things from I want to do this right, but I want to give space to other people as well, and I don't want to take up places from people who can't, who have traditionally been not as easy to get into publishing as well, is important.
Yeah, that's the issue, isn't it? But that also suggests that there is like a limited number of places in the lifeboat of publishing. And the decisions about the lifeboat places are made by publishers, not by the writers.
Yeah.
Sometimes think that we as writers are sort of being told to imagine how many places there are on the lifeboat and only do what,
Yeah.
Whereas actually it's to do with publishing and to readers buying that is where the responsibility.
Yes, that's the other thing is you've got to get these books out, and publishing has to make people want to read them as well.
Yeah. Okay, so away from that rather contentious area, I don't think we've said anything we'll get ourselves cancelled, but hopefully not. Shouldn't really joke about that. Pirates. Good and bad. So what are your favourite pirate yarns, and which ones have fed into your particular take on pirates for this
pirates? So my favourite bit of pirate media has to be Arthur Lagmean's Death, which is a comedy series with Taika Waititi and Rhys Davies.
Oh, right.
About Stede Bonnet, who was the landed gentleman who decided he was going to run away from home and become a pirate.
I don't know this one, but I know Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
Is that John Rhys you're talking about?
Sorry? It's comedy. It's very loosely historical comedy. It's still on BBC iPlayer. What I really liked about that was because it's very sweet, it's very funny, and it's a very weird group of people coming together. It's a big found family thing set around a comedy and pirates, and it was that kind of aspect that I really liked.
So your own pirates, tell the listener a little bit about what's going on board your pirate ship.
Okay, so the ship is the Dreamer, and it's run by a woman called Millhaven, and her wife is the first mate, and they're also Gabriel's adopted mothers. So there's some literal found family, and then there's some more sort of fantasy standard metaphorical found family. And the ship, the purpose of the ship is largely to work with the Leviathans, who are giant sea creatures in the sea, and cause a major shipping hazard. So they're there to sort of guide the Leviathans out of the way of passing ships so that they don't cause trouble. And that's mostly what the ship does.
So the word dreamer obviously has a context in America about people who wish to become naturalized citizens. And there is, I don't know if that was in your mind, but there is an element of these are refugees from ordinary society.
Yeah.
Finding their place.
I didn't make that the association with the American term actually when I was writing it, but yes, it is people who are dreaming of a better life or a different life or somewhere where they belong, and that is a big part of it. There's various characters talk about, how they've left their previous life, and this is their home now, and this is where they feel they belong and they can be themselves.
So you've just touched on the fact that there is a theme running through this about caring for nature in the body of the Leviathans, and there's quite a distressing episode later on, which I won't spoil, where humans are not caring for these Leviathans.
Yeah.
Leave it at that. Is this something... I sort of have come to the view that almost everything we write must have an element of an environmental story in it at the moment, because it is the story of our time.
Yeah.
That's what you feel.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of fantasy, you have sort of sentient creatures, dragons and things. And I wanted to do something that, you couldn't reason with, you couldn't explain the situation to, it didn't have that kind of intelligence. But I think learning to live with things that are dangerous, things that you can't reason with is, I think, an important topic, and how we do that and how we meet conflicting needs is a very topical thing.
Yes, even just in Europe, I was looking at the reintroduction of wolves and bears, and in some places they're already saying that's too much. They're already carrying off the livestock. So when does the pushback come? It seems to be we're in a continual battle, saying we want nature to be natural, but when it turns out to be very natural and destructive to what we do, it becomes a problem. It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's really... So I was given the little hint that you might have another fantasy interest that does influence your writing, which is that you are somewhat in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. Is this right?
Yeah.
Tell us about you and Dungeons and Dragons.
So I haven't. The last time I played Dungeons and Dragons was at Comic-Con last year. We had a little session with a group of authors, and we ran a little session where we were our characters in all working together in a fantasy setting. But my longest running campaign was based on the first book, not the first book I published, but the first book I finished, and was set in that world, and that ran for several years. So I was a GM in that one, but I've also played in various settings.
So what is the experience of playing in a Dungeons and Dragons narrative which you're sharing with others, and presumably open to their decisions, which ones you may not have take yourself? What does that comes to you as someone who's plotting and writing a book?
Yeah, I mean, it does teach you that everybody's got their own sort of agendas and thoughts, and does show you how different characters with different ideas of how to approach something can come out and make that feel right in the world. So you don't want your characters to feel like they're railroaded. You want their decisions to feel organic. And I think being in a group and having different people approaching things in different ways can give you an idea of how that works.
And so when you're writing fantasy, do you find yourself naturally tending towards the, I wouldn't call them stock characters, but character types that Dungeons and Dragons encourages you to invent?
I think my first book did, because it was kind of, it gives sort of D&D feeling, so that you have got your classic fighter, you've got your bard, you've got the necromancer. I don't think Fated Winds is quite the same. It's not quite so D&D like standards, but the first book definitely that was one of the things I wanted it to have.
What was the name of the first book? So we can just
the first book is called Till Death Do Us Bard.
Oh yes, I think I saw that in the notes. A great title. So you've written this book. What is the plan going forward? Is there another book on the stocks happening at the moment, Rose?
We're hoping to sell another book, which again is another standalone, and is another one featuring sailing ships, but these ones fly. and it's the story of the last job. So it's a captain who's just lost his wife, and his crew have convinced him to take on one last job, and the job turns out to be looking for his missing ex, who he left sort of 30 years ago on not terribly good terms. And the hunt for this guy leads them to a forgotten city of Amethyst in the desert, and a cult that's trying to raise a dead god.
So it's got an element of romance in it.
I've called it a post-romance because it's the romantic relationships, both with the wife and with the ex, are both over. So there's not going to be a sort of happily ever after, the characters getting together, but it's sort of exploring what happens with people who have had a relationship, but now that's over, and how they have to overcome their feelings and work together in a difficult situation.
Well, I don't think that is an interesting idea in the romance world. I wonder if you'll be pressured to get them together at the end. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, I mean, it very clearly, if they don't, then it won't be a romance. Because I know that if you don't have your happily ever after and you call it a romance, then that's not right. But yeah, hopefully they'll I'll be able to note that it's not a romance like the other two. This one's a bit different.
Right. So thank you, Rose, for talking to us. We always end with our guests with just imagining our way around all the fantasy worlds. It could be from film or television series or from books or plays. It doesn't matter. And we imagine where's the best place for something. So in previous episodes, we've talked about where's the best place to go for a drink, or the best place to be a singer-songwriter, that kind of thing. But I thought in your case, I suppose we could have done where's the best place to be in prison, but no, I'm not doing that. There isn't many good places. Where's the best place to be rescued by pirates? And you can actually define your pirates. You don't have to keep them on sea. You can,
I was thinking sea pirates. I was actually thinking the Robin Hood's Rain Wilds might be quite a good place, because you don't want to be in the water there very long. But going around that area on a ship and seeing things from a distance might be quite interesting. Because it's sort of tropical forests and there'll be lots of wildlife. I think that might be quite nice.
Yes, definitely not stay in the sea very long. I could have the sharks and things going on. I was thinking that actually, in a way, Han Solo from Star Wars is a pirate.
Yes, yeah, he's definitely.
I wouldn't mind being rescued by him from some kind of, back to my childhood self. Remembering the first Star Wars film. So I think maybe I'd like to be rescued by pirates in the world of Star Wars. So thank you so much, Rose, and all the best with this book as it is launched off.
Yep.
Onto the, you're hoisting the Blue Peter and off you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Mythmakers podcast, brought to you by the Oxford Centre for Fantasy. Visit oxfordcenterforfantasy.org to join in the fun. Find out about our online courses, in-person stays in Oxford, plus visit our shop for great gifts. Tell a friend and subscribe wherever you find your favourite podcasts worldwide.